You know what it is? I love it.
Intentionally, we really try to have a lot of stuff here, just so that it can kind of continue to raise awareness about.
Do you think that 30 people living in the quarter is about right? Do you think it's still growing?
I think it could still grow. I mean, I think it
Okay.
will grow.
Oh, you do?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely, I do. And we're kind of, it's just sort of an organic thing that we're kind of just figuring it out as we go, really,
Mhm.
as far as what that's going to look like long term. I mean, I don't have large dreams of just like, having hundreds of families. I think it would lose.
Now you're saying families. This
Some of the
started as like a
authenticity.
young adult.
It did,
community,
yes,
right?
but we actually have 2 married couples
Okay.
living in the Meyer Catholic Quarter that are both pregnant with their first child.
Okay.
So that's really exciting. And they were involved, both couples met through City on a Hill, Young Adult Ministry. And they
Okay.
both got married within the last several months.
Okay. And they intend to continue living in the Meyer
Um,
Quarter?
I don't know. I hope so.
You hope so?
I hope
Okay.
so. I haven't had that conversation with them yet, but that's my hope.
So something that has kind of interested me is like when I talk to people about intentional community, sometimes they want to go to intentional community to get away from something or to just surround themselves with a certain type of person, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think of it kind of like an Amish impulse,
Mm-hmm.
I sense like in the Meyer Catholic Quarter that you guys are, like, it seems like all these events you do are 99% outreach events. Does that seem right?
Yeah. I mean, I would I would say always evangelization is, at least, I mean, I can only speak for myself, but I would say when I was in the office, and I'm sure that the current director, Dave Denutza, would say the same thing, that this is the springtime of the church. It is the new evangelization, and that is what we're called to do.
So what happens when not everyone, necessarily who self-identifies as Catholic, like, agrees with all the church teachings, and I get the sense that this is a fairly chaste, Orthodox crowd that's kind of centered around here, but it seems like pretty easily people would be coming into events who don't share that mindset or whatever. What do you guys run them off, or
No.
no?
Absolutely
How's
not.
that work?
No. Well, I mean, I would say that God is using City on a Hill, and I think the reason why it has thrived so much and He's blessed it so much is because He wants this, and He has a desire for people to be converted and to have freedom in understanding the church's teachings and seeing the beauty in them. And so I feel like the thing that's really cool about this group is you've got a lot of really normal people that are fun. They like to have a good time, and they are also really excited about their Catholic faith. And so when you combine those two, it is something of it's very intriguing. And when you genuinely care about people and they see that and they can feel that, then you have a lot of people really being converted in their hearts and falling in love with the church as they grow to understand the whys behind what the church teaches. So I feel like there's a lot of that happening. You definitely have some people that come in and probably write it off. Maybe they have a conversation that doesn't sit well and they never come back. But for those people, I would say that is one opportunity. I mean, that's just the beginning of, they probably have, God is targeting them in the sense that He desires to have a personal relationship with them. And so they're just on the beginning of their journey. And He's probably going to continue to bring people into their life along the way.
Okay. I run events, usually with people in the inner city, and I guess I run a book club. It's the closest thing to like a young adult Catholic event I run. And sometimes I have to make sure that there's a certain I don't know the right word, but it's like spirit of the event or ethos of the event, or like if you're running a barbecue in the inner city, it's pretty easy for it to become an alcohol-fueled bad news affair. Like you have to guard against this, right? So that instead of you achieving your goal of bringing a certain type of spirit and helping people participate in it, you end up with the reverse where they end up bringing you down. Not that it's an us-them thing, but that is always something I worry about a little bit, you know. Is there any worry about that with you with this, like that if you set up these like men's and women's groups that you get, you know, enough people who you think are of the right spirit in each one to make sure they stay kind of like with what the goal is, or
yeah, I mean, I think that's the purpose of a small group leader in a situation like that, which obviously that's very different than a barbecue. It's a lot harder to control the different, what's the word, when you have a graph.
Okay. XY axis?
Yes, what are those? Anyway, you know what I'm talking about, but it's a lot harder to control that if you have 5 people going into the inner city and putting on a barbecue, and then you have 35 or 40 people showing up to the barbecue that you maybe have never met before. I don't know.
Okay,
you know,
sure, whatever.
I mean, I think
situation. Yeah.
I think the important thing is to have enough people that are consistently involved with a group that are well formed to kind of keep it on the right track.
Is there some type of leadership committee within? Is that part of City on the Hill? Is
Yes.
that part of? Does the Meyer Catholic Quarter have anything official about it, or is it just a group of people living in the same?
We are about to. Yes. We are about to. Yes. I mean, I can tell you what.
You're
basically
starting a bureaucracy. Or?
Well, we actually have a meeting coming up in a couple weeks that I have yet to send the email out about, but everybody knows about it. We actually were already supposed to have one and we had to cancel it. But this is something that we've been telling people verbally, but we just haven't given it to them in writing. And really it's to be proposed, not imposed.
Okay.
So if anybody chooses not to do this, then they're not going to be, kicked out of the Meyer Catholic Quarter.
Not that they could be, even if you want.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Unless, of course, I owned the house, which I only own one. But
Yeah.
everybody that lives in this house, which there are 7 of us, they're all on board. Yes.
Okay.
So that's exciting. And I would say everybody that lives in the Meyer Catholic Quarter is really excited about the things that we're proposing. So basically,
can you give us a hint what those
absolutely, yes. So our rule of life is going to be based around every household choosing a patron saint for their house and a charism attached to that saint. So basically inspired by that saint. So for instance, my house, we've chosen St. Teresa of Avila. And we just recently chose that. So we need to come up with our house name, but it's probably going to be the Avila House, just for quick reference for people.
Okay.
If they want to refer to one of the houses.
So they're not going to call this like Carrie Kafka's house anymore. They're going to call it Avila
That's
House?
right. Yes, but the guys that live in the upstairs unit, they'll have their own name, so because they're their own household. And then basically every house we're going to encourage them to have a charism where together 1 time per month, ideally, they would go out and do something in that spirit. So basically it could be, let's say, if you had, John Paul the Great, and your charism could be evangelization. So maybe you would go out and, I don't know, just go out and
implement it somehow.
Yeah, I mean, some people, maybe they'll go to Planned Parenthood and pray a rosary once a month together. Maybe they'll go and sidewalk together once a month. Maybe a group of guys will decide that theology of the body is going to be theirs. Maybe they'll go to the strip club once a month and pray a rosary and not go inside the strip club, but I should have prefaced that. But yeah, I mean, the idea is to go to be in the world and to be Christ in the world. And I think there's just something that is so powerful. I think we can all agree with that. Whenever you are doing something where you're united in you have a common goal. If you've ever been on like a mission trip or something like that, there's just this incredible bond that is created through being together and working to make something happen or working to make a difference. It's just really beautiful. And so that's kind of what we're trying to inspire with that. And then beyond that, prayer once a week together as a household, and a household meal together once a week. So maybe those two would be combined. And then we're also encouraging everyone to do 30 minutes of meditation daily on their own.
So this grew up as a very spontaneous Catholic people living in the same street type situation that facilitated with the young adult community a lot, and now you see it moving towards a much more intentional community. Is what it sounds like. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. What about people over since 2008 to now? Have there been a lot of people who come into the community for a couple of years, like meaning like they move into the city, they find out about it, they move in, and they move away from the city because their job takes them or something like this? Or has it more been like a bunch of like long-standing Kansas Cityans moving in?
I would say the majority of people that live here in the Meyer Catholic Quarter are actually not from Kansas City.
Okay.
Which is interesting. But I'd say there's a lot of people involved in City on a Hill that are not from Kansas City originally.
Okay.
And I don't know why that is necessarily, but probably because you have a lot of people that are from Kansas City, they have their roots here already, and so maybe they don't feel as inclined to get involved in something where they can meet people, which I would say they're really missing out, because if that's the case, just because they could bring their group in and meet so many other people. I mean, there's just so many amazing people involved in City on a Hill and Catholic Challenge Sports and all of those things, and there's a lot of other great stuff going on in the city as well. So I kind of digressed from a question that you had about 5 minutes ago. I got off track, but you had asked about the leadership team, and I would answer that yes, there is a leadership team with specific roles within Band of Brothers and City on a Hill Young Adult Ministry, and that is something that I am actually working to implement in the Meyer Catholic Quarter, because it's actually getting so big that we need to have different people kind of focusing on different things.
Okay. You know, when you first said 30 people, I thought, okay, that's bigger than almost anywhere else, right? But then when I think of it as like 10, that might be like 10 apartments full of people, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's the way to say it, right? So that is quite a, presence.
Absolutely. And there's constantly,
on the street.
Places coming available, and so right now I'm the one that's, taking the pictures and putting them up on Facebook. And
oh, you're kind of acting as a real estate agent.
Right. People on Facebook ask me if I'm in real estate.
Just to keep you legal.
Yeah.
You're not really a real estate agent earning commissions for
No, although I think I would like that job.
So somebody is watching this who's in Seattle, Washington, or Minneapolis, or Cleveland, or wherever, and they're like, oh, that's interesting. We want to have the MCQ / Cleveland or something like that. How do they pull it off, given that not everyone's going to have all these like interesting factors lined up? Or what's your think on that?
Yeah. So I'm really glad that you brought that question up, because I was hoping to be able to incorporate this really exciting story that just still blows my mind. So basically, I get a phone call, or actually I get an email from a guy named Lance about 2 months ago, who lives in San Francisco. And I got the email from Allison Keegan, who is my successor in the Young Adult office for City on a Hill, and she's introducing me to Lance, and basically says that he's interested in talking more about this community life. He's excited about the concept, and so all I know, and I was very busy that week, so I get the email and I, fire off an initial hello, and then he ends up calling me. I don't call him back for 2 or 3 days, which is embarrassing to say, but you get busy, and long story short, he gives me another phone call and says, I will be in Kansas City tomorrow.
Wow.
And I'm coming to look at a house in the Meyer Catholic Quarter that I would like to purchase for the Meyer Catholic Quarter for your use to have another household. Okay, so when I hear this, I'm absolutely blown away. Essentially, he lives in a place called Priory West in San Francisco. It's catty corner from the Dominican Priory, I guess that's what you would call it.
Sure. All right.
And it's a house of 5 guys that live together in intentional community. Now this guy he does internet stuff like website development and such. And for the first couple of years, first 18 months, he went out on his own. For the first 18 months, he did not even take a salary. And then God has blessed him abundantly since that point. He started praying about what he could do with this money. He thought, I could invest this and get really rich, but that's not really going to, bring me ultimate joy. And that's not what I want to do. And I want to give it back to God. And so he started praying about where he could invest that money. So he had a few different things that he was looking at. And actually, he would be a phenomenal person to interview because he's very passionate.
Okay.
But he had never even heard of the Meyer Catholic Quarter.
Okay.
So he's living in this community. He decides to move into this house, which is hard to get into it.
Mm-hmm.
But he had owned an apartment in San Francisco.
Just, by the way, it's hard to get into the house. Isn't that just a sign that there is greater demand for these communities?
Yeah, and I would say that there are so many people that, even though we have 30 people that live here, everything has to align just right with timing. I would tell you in the last year, we've probably had 20 others who had desired to move into the Meyer Catholic Quarter, but it just didn't work out with places available, roommates at just the right time.
So by owning an additional house on the block, it'll fill up pretty quick then.
Yeah, and then his friends just bought the house next door to his. Okay, so this is insane, all right? So, I was freaking out when this guy showed up on my doorstep. I said, I'll meet with you. And I said to him, I had the audacity to say, this is before I knew any of that background, but I actually said to him, I have 1 hour so we can talk about community stuff, because I really didn't, at that time, I didn't know that he was going to be buying. So I guess I spoke incorrectly before in explaining that. But basically, he felt so blessed by living in this community of Catholic men that are all discerning their vocation, and their goal is to stay there until they move into their vocation in the house that he lives in. But he
is
basically...
this guy moving out here or not?
No.
So he's just helping Catholic community
Just
in
wait.
the Midwest.
Well, hang with me for just one more minute here. So basically, he started praying about it, and then after he moved into this, he ended up renting out his apartment that he owns in San Francisco to move into this house. Okay. Mm-hmm. Loved it so much, he started praying about the possibility, like, okay, God, maybe there's something to this. Because God kept shutting the doors in the other places that he was going to give his money. Mm-hmm. And he started thinking, you know what, I felt so blessed by this. What if we had this in other places in the country? And so he prayed about it, and he got to the point where he decided that he wanted to have a men's house and a women's house in every diocese in the country.
Oh, whoa.
So that's his goal. So he started asking friends where the good young adult communities are in the country.
Okay.
And there were 5 cities that came up repeatedly.
What are those 5?
Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Okay.
Texas A&M. So I forget where that is exactly, but
College Station,
Texas. Kansas City. And then there are 2 others, and I can't remember what he said.
Are they all in the Midwest?
Nope.
Okay.
I think there's another one in Michigan, and then I can't remember where the 5th one is. I don't think he said Denver.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. All right.
So I don't know what the criteria was for
starting
his
point.
Right.
These 5 locations.
So he didn't know anybody in Kansas City. He had never been to Kansas City. He didn't know a soul here. Mm-hmm. And over the course of the couple of weeks that he was asking all his friends and family, mm-hmm. or not family but friends, Kansas City came up several times, and there were 3 different people that happened to know Allison Keegan. Mm-hmm. And so they gave him contact information for her. He contacted her and he said, here's my vision. This is what I want to do. Mm-hmm. Do you think something like this would fly in Kansas City? Mm-hmm. And she said, well, not only would it fly, but we're actually already doing it. Mm-hmm. We have something called the Meyer Catholic Quarter. Mm-hmm. So he booked a flight that day, or he got online that day. After he found out the area, the Meyer Catholic Quarter, what street it was on, he found a house was for sale that happens to be 4 houses down that way from where I live. He got a flight, flew in. So that's the day that I met with him. The day he flew in, he didn't know anybody. He came here, he looked at the house earlier in the day, and then we met later that night. We ended up, talking for probably 4 or 5 hours. Mm-hmm. And I was absolutely giddy just to hear that he was wanting to invest in this for us. And so, long story short, God just... It's amazing to me how God will orchestrate details so that you can get that confirmation. Mm-hmm. So that night, it was a Thursday night, all my roommates happened to be home. The guys upstairs like just decided to have an impromptu bonfire in the backyard with beer and s'mores. And the girls were home. We were all out there, had a great time. I mean, that doesn't happen that often. Certainly not organically. I mean, we have to make it happen, because we're busy, and I mean, we do.
You should say it happens.
Well, I mean, it does happen. I shouldn't say.
That's the legend of the Meyer Catholic
I know.
Quarter.
I should say not that, but to that degree.
Okay,
I mean,
yeah.
just with everybody being there, and
Okay.
I mean, it was just incredible to me. And we did drink Boulevard beer.
Okay.
You got to
No more,
try
though.
some. No more. Yeah. So anyway, long story short, the next morning he put an offer on the house. They countered back, and he owned the house within a month,
Okay.
and has already filled it with 3 girls.
Wow.
And then he talked to his friends that live in Springfield, Missouri, told them about this, and they decided to buy the house right next door to that one, and they're going to make it a men's house.
Wow.
So we're soon to have another at least 4 guys.
Okay, so throwing this out there then. I know so many people who are just wanting to invest in real estate in general, right? And it seems like this is like a very interesting opportunity to both have a real estate property and be helping a Catholic cause and community and all that. I mean, are you, like, if somebody's watching this video and they're like, well, shoot, that's where I should, you could call it gift, you could call it invest, you could call it whatever. There's enough pent-up demand for Catholics to move to this area that if people were buying property here, it would work?
I believe so.
You believe so? Yeah.
I can't say that with 100% assurity. I
Sure.
can't guarantee them that they're never going to have any vacancy in their house. So it would be something that they would need to pray about. But
don't do it just for a profit motive.
Exactly. I mean, if you want to be able to have a strong investment and then also have a Catholic component to it, where you feel like you're kind of giving back to the church and building up the church, then I would say absolutely.
This idea of like having an intentional house, I've heard of these before, and I wouldn't be surprised if most major cities somehow have very involved in Catholics living together in an apartment or a house, right? The whole unique part is when you get them to all start living on the same street, and it's house after house after house, and you do like a pub crawl of Catholic houses or something.
Yeah, we've done progressive dinners. We haven't done any pub
dinners.
crawls, but yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Like an appetizer and then... Okay, that's cool. All right, so how do you get to that? Like, how do you, so some young adult coordinator in Atlanta is like, I just send out an email and this happens, or what?
Well, I think you have to find a place that has a lot of rental properties that are all kind of consistently coming available, opening up. I would say that's the number one thing. And then once you find that place, and obviously that the rent, that it's safe enough and that the rent is doable for a different demographic. I mean, you're going to have obviously some people that are in school, some people that are working full-time, some people that are, just varying circumstances. And it would probably depend also what you want that community to look like. If you want it to be just for people and their vocational discernment, and then once they get married, they move on to other things, or if you want the potential for it to grow organically or strategically into having singles and families, which I think there's a lot of beauty in that, because then these singles it gives them a chance to kind of, before they get into their vocation, you can have some loneliness or some feeling of just, not feeling like you're really a part of anything. Hopefully your household and your house will give you that. But so I would say first you look at the lay of the land to figure out, is this feasible with enough properties? And then I would say you can't just send out an email or just tell people. I mean, you have to have a core group of people that are already living there, that are excited about it, that are willing to talk it up to their friends. And
so you need maybe, like, the core group here was the 6 girls in the original house, is that right? So you need kind of like some buy-in and get those 6 people to jump on board, and then building momentum from there.
But I think it's absolutely, it would be able to duplicate this.
Okay.
I have no doubt about that.
Can we assure people in the Meyer Catholic Quarter that if another diocese comes head hunting for Carrie Kafka, that you're not going to get hired and move away?
No, I mean, absolutely, I'm not going to move away.
Okay.
Because I had the opportunity to take a job with a great ministry, and I told them I'm not willing to move. So,
okay.
No, I'm totally 100% invested in this, and I believe in it. And
well, I have to say, Carrie, I admire you, and I admire that I think there's something special about doing work for the kingdom when you're not getting paid for it, you know, and I think it's really neat that you both started this when in a sense you were getting paid for it, which, not that it wasn't from God, but it's just, I think it's special that even after you left that position that you've done the work of that position, you know, taking nothing away from the people who followed you up in that position up to today. So thank you for that.